The alien vampire woman's bite delivered a fatal wound, yet paradoxically, it dragged the human warrior back to existence. The metropolis of Eldrith was never bathed in a conventional sunrise. Its sky had settled into a permanent twilight, as if the heavens themselves had opted for an unending slumber. This dimness enveloped the decaying towers of what was once a magnificent city. The air, heavy with the scent of scorched ozone and intricate machinery, sustained a constant thrum, suggesting that the city's very structure remained sentient, striving for continuity even after everything else had ceased. The final fragments of humanity were scattered across the lightless thoroughfares, desperately clinging to any semblance of survival. Cal stood at the perimeter of the former battlefield, his boots pressing lightly into the soil. The war zone was now steeped in an eerie, profound silence. His hand instinctively hovered near the hilt of his sword, prepared to unsheathe the weapon at the slightest movement. His breath emerged as soft plumes of vapor, a simple confirmation of his continued being. Or so he tried to believe. In truth, he felt devoid of true life, not entirely, not after the torrent of events. The uprising had been crushed. The invading aliens had obliterated almost every defensive stronghold. His comrades had fallen one by one, leaving Cal with nothing but this relentless, solitary fight for survival. He had once been an esteemed warrior, the finest in his company. Now he was merely a leftover, a specter roaming a spectral city. His sense of purpose had vanished, at least in the way he had understood it before. Yet, an ineffable feeling of imminent change lingered. A slight shifting in the shadows yanked his focus back to the present. He tensed, his blade drawn in a single, fluid motion, the metal catching the faint ambient light. Gently now, a voice cooed from the darkness. Cal's heart skipped a beat, but his face remained impassive. He was conditioned not to react, to never be taken by surprise. Still, this felt unlike anything else. Emerging from the gloom was a figure, tall, graceful, and impossibly elegant. At first, she appeared human, her long, flowing hair illuminated by the distant glimmer of a street lamp. But there was a fundamental incongruity to her presence. Her ears, elongated and sharp as knife tips, were the immediate giveaway. They twitched subtly as she approached, the undeniable instinct of a predator at work. Her skin was incredibly pale, almost luminous, as if the shadows themselves could not adhere to her. Her smile revealed keen, predatory fangs. "That's a nice weapon," she purred, her voice a low hum that caused the skin to prickle. "But I doubt you'll have a use for it tonight." Cal held his blade steady. "Who are you?" The being, alien, vampire, whatever she was, cocked her head as if deliberating the query. "The name is Cyra. I'm clearly not local. I usually gravitate toward more isolated locations." She widened her grin, exposing more of her disquieting teeth. "But you found me, so I suppose that counts for something." Cal maintained his distance, studying her meticulously. He had encountered creatures like her before. Vampires, mutants, and a variety of entities that had breached the dimensional rifts. She was essentially the same, yet every facet of her being radiated danger. "And precisely what is it you want?" he asked, his voice low. Cyra took a step nearer, the air around her seeming to vibrate with an energy he couldn't decipher. "What do I want?" she mused, her smile broadening. "What does anyone desire? Power? Dominion? Survival?" She paused, her gaze sweeping over him in a clear assessment. "You've been surviving, haven't you? How long has it been now?" Cal's grip tightened on his sword, but he offered no reply. Instead, he adjusted his stance, prepared to strike if necessary. "Tell me, warrior," she continued, unperturbed by his readiness. "Do you ever consider why you're still here? Why you've managed to endure when all others have fallen?" Her eyes shone in the dim light like two moons ascending over a desolate landscape. "There's a specific reason for that, you know?" He felt it then, the odd magnetic pull in the surrounding atmosphere, a subtle internal tug. He narrowed his eyes, confused and unnerved by the sensation. It wasn't just her evident power, it was something deeper, something more significant. "You're not the first to ponder it," she said with a soft laugh as if she were reading his thoughts. "But you are the first to actually meet me." Before Cal could react, she was upon him, moving faster than his eyes could follow, her body a streak of motion. She struck with devastating precision, her fangs sinking deep into the flesh of his neck before he could even lift his blade. The pain was excruciating, a sharp agony that felt like every nerve in his body was screaming in dissent. He gasped, his vision blurring, his legs giving way beneath him. His heart pounded in his chest, a final, frantic beat as his life began to ebb away. But then a profound anomaly occurred. Instead of descending into darkness, he experienced a sudden raw and violent surge. His body, no longer subject to his will, throbbed with a terrifying vitality. His limbs became rigid, his muscles taut, and his heart, which should have stopped, continued its rhythm. Cyra recoiled, her lips stained with his blood. She observed him with a mix of amusement and a darker, expectant quality. "You are mine now," she whispered, her voice almost tender, yet completely devoid of kindness. Cal blinked, disoriented, still kneeling. He could feel the atmosphere around him shifting, condensing, charging with something ancient and dark. His head swam as the world seemed to tilt and distort. And through it all there was that hunger. That insatiable craving coursed through his veins. It was alien, foreign, yet undeniably his own. Cyra's eyes gleamed in the faint light. She stood, her tall, elegant silhouette stark against the broken skyline. "Welcome to the new era," she declared, her voice a gentle melody that offered no comfort. "Now let's see if you can survive this one." Cal did not respond. His gaze was fixed on her, his mind a tempest of confusion, fear, and something he could not name. He had been revived, but not as the man or the soldier he once was. He was something entirely new. The hunger twisted in his chest, and for the first time in a long time, Cal felt alive, and it terrified him. "So," Cyra said, taking a casual step back. "How does it feel to be resurrected, warrior?" Cal's lips parted, but no words emerged. Instead, his throat was burning with a strange new necessity. "You'll adapt," she assured him, her tone almost sweet, like a lullaby promising only nightmares. Cal stumbled to his feet, the world spinning in a way he had never experienced. His legs felt alien, stiff and uncooperative, yet undeniably strong. The hunger was present, gnawing at him like a wild beast in his core, its sharp teeth scraping against his insides. He wanted to scream, to lash out, to fight, but his body held him captive. He was too aware now of the strange, new power surging through his veins, as if the universe had decided his body was merely a vessel for something far older and darker than himself. He attempted to focus on anything that could anchor his senses, but his mind kept drifting, pulled towards that insatiable feeling, the urge to feed, to consume, to devour. His breath hitched as his gaze flickered toward Cyra, who stood with the same chilling grace, watching him like a predator assessing its quarry. "You are not dead," she noted, almost as a mental annotation. "Yet." Cal clenched his fists, trying to subdue the panic. "What have you done to me?" Her smile was slow and calculating. "I did what was necessary. You were at the brink, warrior. You were dying." She advanced, her presence pulling at him like a magnet. "I offered you a chance to endure, to flourish." The words echoed in his head, but they made no sense. Nothing did. He opened his mouth to speak, but only a deep, primal growl emerged, an unnatural sound, an instinct he could not suppress. Cyra's eyes glimmered. She tilted her head, watching him with a mixture of amusement and satisfaction. "The hunger is potent, I see. Don't worry, it will subside with time. You'll learn to manage it." Manage it? He wanted to laugh, but his throat was parched, his mind clouded by the bizarre transformation. "Control? Feels like it's ripping me apart." Cyra raised an eyebrow. "Welcome to immortality, warrior. You'll discover that everything is heightened now. Your senses are sharper. Your strength, your speed, all amplified. And yes, the hunger. That's part of the bargain." Cal looked at his hands. They appeared familiar, yet felt foreign, as if they belonged to someone else. Stronger, faster. "Immortality," he repeated, the word tasting strange. "Is this a curse? Some kind of gift?" Cyra chuckled, a dark sound. "Label it as you wish. A curse? A blessing? In the end, it's all the same. The real question is, warrior, can you live with it?" "I never asked for this," Cal growled, backing away. His mind was racing. "I didn't ask for any of it. I was just fulfilling my duty. I was fighting for something greater than myself." "And now?" she asked, her voice a quiet murmur that resonated within his mind. "What will you fight for now?" Cal had no answer. The hunger was intensifying, clawing at his thoughts. It took all his effort to remain grounded. He could feel his teeth lengthening, his body tensing as something deep within him, something dark and ravenous, awakened. "You must feed," Cyra stated, as if anticipating his thoughts. "You're still feeble. Believe me, you'll feel better once you do." Cal frowned. "Feed on what?" Cyra's smile widened. "On anything you can find." "Anything." Cal's voice was strained. "You mean people?" Ah, the hesitation. She sounded almost entertained. "Yes, people. But don't fret. I'm not asking you to shred anyone apart yet. We'll begin modestly. A small trial if you will. Cal felt his stomach clench. He had always been a soldier, fighting for the collective good, for humanity's survival. Now he was expected to prey on the very people he had sworn to protect. He could feel the dark, seductive, undeniable influence of the power Cyra had bestowed upon him. The need to satisfy the gnawing hunger was all-consuming. He shook his head. I am not a monster. Cyra seemed unfazed by his defiance. Oh, but you are. Or at least you will be. The issue is whether you accept it. Do you resist it or do you embrace what you've become? Cal's hands balled into fists. He wanted to strike out, to destroy, but he couldn't, not until he understood his transformation. I don't know if I can do this. You must, Cyra countered. Because whether you accept it or not, there is no turning back. The hunger will pursue you and it will only grow stronger. You will either learn to control it or it will control you. A shiver ran down Cal's spine. The words hung in the air, heavy with both truth and menace. He had no clue what Cyra had turned him into, but he knew one thing. His former life was over. What now? He asked, his voice a bare whisper. Cyra gave a shrug, the movement so fluid it seemed as if she were made of liquid. Now we train. I'll instruct you on how to harness your new nature. We'll start with the fundamentals: feeding, managing your strength, your speed. You will require all of it. Trust me, warrior. The world you once knew is gone. This new world, our world, is teeming with monsters and we must be stronger than them. She turned and began to walk away, her long figure melting into the shadowed alley, leaving Cal standing amidst the ruins. His mind was reeling. He felt like a helpless puppet being dragged along. Come on, Cyra called over her shoulder. We'll start small. A brief walk. You'll see. Cal hesitated, but an unnatural, strange urge deep inside him compelled him to follow. He wasn't sure where this path led, but for the first time since everything collapsed, a feeling stirred within him that wasn't just hunger. It was a desire to comprehend what had transpired, to understand the kind of power he now possessed. So he walked, his feet tracking behind Cyra, deeper into the night and deeper into the unknown destiny that had been chosen for him. The city's soft hum was almost soothing as Cal followed Cyra through Eldrith's winding back alleys. His footsteps echoed against the ruined walls, a sound incongruous in a place so full of ghosts. But it wasn't the ghosts that concerned him anymore. It was the fact that he was now one of them. Where are we headed? Cal asked, his voice more steady than he felt. The hunger gnawed at the edges of his thoughts, like a dog straining at its leash, waiting for permission to pounce. Training, Cyra replied, her voice low and composed, like a serpent guiding a lost lamb. The sooner you grasp what you've become, the sooner you can stop pretending to be human. He clenched his jaw. I never said I wanted this. You were not given a choice, she stated as if it were the most evident fact in the world. Now stop being overly dramatic. Trust me, you will eventually master it. Cal was about to argue again when they arrived at an old, rusted door. It was part of a structure that had long since crumbled in the anarchy of the war. The destination was one of the obsolete research laboratories, a facility that once spearheaded humanity's military technological edge. Now it stood as a mere forgotten relic, its air thick with the smell of decomposition, humidity, and a sharp, underlying chemical odor. With a flick of her wrist, Cyra forced the door open, its rusted hinges protesting with a loud, grating squeal. Inside, the atmosphere was markedly cooler. The walls were lined with peculiar machinery, much of it appearing ancient, outdated, and abandoned. However, certain components looked relatively newer and distinctly operational. What is this location? Cal questioned, surveying the room. Where else would we begin your instruction? Cyra retorted, tapping one of the apparatuses with a long, slender finger. This is a makeshift laboratory. It is the place where I acquired all the necessary knowledge for my own kind of survival. Now you will learn the same. Cal observed the equipment, a mounting sense of unease coiling in his gut. Some devices seemed potentially useful, but others sent a chill down his spine. This was an alien domain now, and he could no longer discern between safety and peril. You have the initial throes of your hunger managed, she stated, moving closer to him. Now we shall ascertain how well you handle your emergent strength. Cal had little time to process her meaning before she forcefully propelled him towards a large, glass tank situated against the far wall. A thick, viscous fluid swirled within, catching the room's meager light. What is that? He asked, his voice strained. Sustenance, Cyra replied with a smile. For your species. Cal's stomach tightened at the word. Was this to be his feeding ground? That familiar, gnawing hunger resurfaced, now more potent, welling up from his core. His senses sharpened, his body reacting to the airborne scent. But the sensation was imperfect. The liquid in the tank did not carry the full, metallic tang of blood. Instead, it was denser, richer, like a concentrated nutrient slurry. "I won't consume that," Cal declared instantly, taking a sharp step back. Cyra raised an eyebrow. "You possess minimal choice. This is the path to your continued existence. You will eventually come to appreciate it." Before Cal could object further, she moved to a nearby console and pressed a button. The glass door slid open with a sharp hiss, and something within the tank stirred. A sleek, insectoid entity, its limbs twitching as it awoke, suddenly became acutely aware of its surroundings. Its mandibles clattered as it jerked forward, making contact with the enriched liquid. Cal stared wide-eyed. "What in the hell is that?" "Something you will be ingesting," Cyra said dismissively. "It's a bit exotic, but it is effective. You'll become accustomed to it." "Accustomed to it?" Cal muttered, the words alien on his tongue. He couldn't decide which was more unsettling, the prospect of devouring such an alien organism, or the manner in which Cyra presented it as a perfectly natural act. "Enough standing around," Cyra's voice abruptly sharpened. "You must feed, warrior, or you risk starvation. Your new form will not endure long without it." Cal hesitated. He hated to admit it, but the hunger was intensely agonizing, distorting his clarity of thought. He felt slow, disconnected from his own mind, as if the dark power Cyra had unleashed was attempting a complete takeover. The craving was all-consuming. "I will demonstrate the procedure," Cyra offered, sensing his reluctance. She stepped to the side, approaching the tank with slow, deliberate movements. She reached into the nutrient bath without the slightest hesitation and pulled the insectoid creature out. With a single swift movement, she pierced its exoskeleton with a sharpened nail, and the creature went limp in her grasp. Cal's stomach churned. He could not tear his gaze away from the horrifying scene. "This is wrong. This is monstrous." "Come now, Cal," Cyra said, turning to him, her fingers stained with the creature's fluid, yet she remained perfectly composed. "You can either continue to struggle or you can accept it. This is our reality now. You require this to survive." Cal swallowed hard. His body ached with a painful intensity of hunger, his muscles twitching. The idea of feeding on such a thing was repulsive. But the hunger cared nothing for his morals, it violently pushed through his thoughts. He gritted his teeth and stepped forward, driven by an instinct he did not comprehend. Cyra watched him in silence as he approached the tank. She offered no words, simply observed as he reached into the container, his fingers trembling. The instant his hand closed around the creature's body, he felt it, the warmth, the faint pulse, the strange alien energy radiating from it. He was certain that the moment he tasted it, everything would irrevocably change. He would either be utterly consumed by this hunger or learn to bring it under control. With a deep, shaky breath, he tore into the creature's flesh. The strange, viscous substance filled his mouth. Initially it was nothing but an assault on his senses. The texture was wrong, too thick, the taste utterly alien. He nearly retched but forced himself to swallow. Yet the hunger did not cease. It intensified. Then the taste began to transform, shifting as his body adapted, as if his very cells recognized the new fuel source. His vision momentarily blurred, then the world seemed to snap into hyper-focused clarity. He felt everything more intensely, stronger, faster. Energy surged through him unlike anything he had ever felt. It was like he had been roused from a long, sensationless sleep. Cyra watched him, a faint smile playing on her lips. "There. You have mastered the first lesson." Cal wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, his body still vibrating from the rush of power. The hunger was silenced for the moment, but a deeper awareness had been awakened. His body felt profoundly alive. "And now," Cyra said, her voice low and commanding, "we commenced the true training." The ensuing days were a blur of agonizing effort for Cal. He could barely recall the nights, lost in a haze of craving, burgeoning power, and the overwhelming new sensations that now defined his existence. Cyra, always composed and patient, drove him relentlessly, pushing him to the absolute limit of his endurance. Now, standing before her, Cal felt like a tightly wound spring. His body was strong, perhaps too strong for his own good. The hunger persisted, but it had settled into a constant, low hum beneath his skin. He had learned to consume the strange organisms Cyra provided, and on occasion, the victims she led him to. The act was becoming easier, the urges more recognizable, like an old, dark acquaintance. But something else was developing, an undeniable, strange bond between him and Cyra. Feel it? Cyra's voice cut through his thoughts, her eyes locked on his. That magnetic pull. Cal's jaw tightened. He felt it, of course. It was not just physical, it was deeper, more insidious. When she was near, when she touched him or even just looked at him, it felt as if the world tilted. He felt her essence. He nodded, unwilling to trust his voice. Good, Cyra said with a gentle smile. Now that you grasp your physical reality, we will begin working on control. You need it, warrior. Otherwise, you will be nothing more than a slave to the hunger. I am not a slave, Cal shot back, though he couldn't help but question how much of his former self was already gone. Cyra tilted her head, her eyes gleaming. Not yet, but you will be if you don't learn to master it, and yourself. She gestured toward a table in the corner, covered with various implements, syringes, and small vials of dark liquid. Today we test your reflexes, not just physical but mental. You must be able to suppress the bloodlust long enough to think, to strategize. You need to control yourself or you will lose your mind. Cal eyed the table, his senses immediately spiking at the sight of the dark fluid. The hunger stirred, but he fiercely suppressed it, forcing his focus. What must I do? Cyra picked up a syringe, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency. You are going to need to manage your bloodlust, Cal. That is your immediate objective. Bloodlust. Cal blinked. Seriously? Do not look so astonished, she said, her smile remaining curiously soft. You are a vampire now, warrior. It's part of the covenant. You will not have to kill for sustenance forever, but you need to test your limits, to see how long you can prevent the hunger from dominating you. She inserted the syringe into a vial and drew up the dark liquid. Cal watched in quiet dread, his stomach twisting. It didn't resemble blood. It looked disturbingly wrong. What is that compound? He asked, attempting to keep his voice steady. Do not concern yourself, Cyra said, sensing his anxiety. This is a component of the training. It is a compound I have been perfecting for years. It simulates blood, but it is more than just a substitute. It will challenge your control. Cal swallowed, unsure whether he should feel grateful or terrified. He had no time to deliberate before Cyra handed him the syringe. Inject it, she instructed slowly. Allow it to settle. Your body needs to adjust. He hesitated for barely a second before accepting the syringe. As he pressed it to his skin, he felt the sharp, cold sting of the needle before the liquid entered his circulatory system. Almost instantly, a wave of heat flooded him, his pulse accelerating. It was not like blood. It was heavier, thicker, more potent. His head spun momentarily, a strange, profound clarity washing over him, followed by a dark wave of hunger that hit him harder than anything he had felt before. He could feel his muscles clenching, his fangs lengthening in his mouth, his vision blurring at the edges, but he knew he could not let it consume him. Focus, Cal. Cyra's voice was cool, calm, acting as an anchor. Control it. Do not let it take over. He drew a deep breath, trying to push the hunger aside. He felt like he was being internally torn apart, as if something in his chest was desperately trying to claw its way free. His hands trembled as he placed the syringe on the table. I am trying, he growled, barely able to keep his voice from breaking. Cyra moved closer, her fingers lightly brushing his arm, sending a visible tremor through his body. I know you are, but this is merely the initial trial. You are learning to control your impulses, to defer the hunger. Consider it like holding your breath underwater. You can manage it for a time, but ultimately you must surface. Cal clenched his fists, his teeth gritted as the feeling in his chest intensified. He could feel his body rebelling. He desperately wanted to tear through the walls, to sink his teeth into the nearest source of life, the creature in the tank, the blood. He could taste it, smell it, feel it like a living entity in his throat, begging for release. But Cyra's instructions held him fast, acting as a lifeline. Focus. He had to maintain focus. Failure meant losing his sanity entirely. Slowly the minutes dragged on. The hunger did not vanish, but it began to recede just enough for Cal's sense of self to return. His breathing eased and the world gradually stabilized. Cyra remained silent at first, her eyes meticulously tracking every subtle movement and twitch. Impressive, she finally murmured, her voice soft. It's not simple, is it? Cal let out a slow, trembling breath, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand. No. It's truly not simple at all. That is precisely why you are here, Cyra said, her tone gentle but underlined by a note of profound danger. To acquire the strength necessary to control it. Cal shook his head, his thoughts still chaotic. He wasn't sure if he was genuinely becoming stronger or if he was simply deteriorating bit by bit. Yet, for the first time since his transformation, he felt a flicker of hope for survival, provided he could master this control. But survival alone no longer sufficed. He couldn't pinpoint what drove him now, whether it was the hunger or something deeper that had taken root the moment Cyra's fangs pierced his neck. His eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment, he saw the undeniable truth in her gaze. There was no possible return. "You are grasping it," she said, offering a slight smile. "But there remains much more to learn." Cal exhaled, his body still shaking. "I'm prepared." He wasn't certain that was true, but only action would reveal the answer. The first time Cal truly comprehended the gravity of his new existence was on the third night of his intensive training. He stood on the edge of a crumbling bridge, the dark sky stretching limitlessly above and below. The city of Eldrith lay below like a wounded behemoth. Faint, widely spaced lights flickered from the buildings, resembling distant, dying stars. It was an ancient city, a silent witness to humanity's greatest achievements and its worst failures. Cyra had brought him here for a straightforward purpose: to test his core instincts. "The hunger will be a constant companion," she had told him, her voice serious. "You must learn to command it." Cal was unsure how to respond. The hunger had evolved beyond a mere craving. It was now a presence, a new, strange limb he could not ignore. His muscles twitched with a powerful urge for action, his senses alive and surging with amplified power. "You overthink things," Cyra said from behind him, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Relax. This is not a test of brute force. It is a test of restraint." Restraint. Cal repeated the word as if it were meaningless. He turned to face her, his eyes narrowed. "You're asking me to restrain this?" He held out his arm, feeling the dormant power vibrating beneath his skin. "I am no longer simply human." "No, you are not." Cyra's smile was slight but warm. "You are something superior. Or you will be if you succeed here." He sighed, leaning against the metal railing. A small part of him trusted her judgment, even if her methodology was unorthodox. Suddenly, a faint rustling sound came from the shadows beneath them. Cal tensed, his instincts immediately heightened. His eyes narrowed as the shadows coalesced, and a figure emerged, human yet fundamentally not. Its eyes emitted a soft glow, and it moved with an unnatural grace. Cyra's voice broke the silence. "We refer to them as night walkers. They are neither truly living nor completely dead. They exist in a state of suspension, like a blur at the edge of your vision." Cal's heart hammered in his chest. His body responded to the figure below with an immediate surge of the new hunger. His gaze snapped to Cyra, who was watching him carefully, her expression inscrutable. "What is your command?" Cal asked, his voice low and controlled. "To kill it?" Cyra shook her head. "No. You must control yourself, Cal. The Night Walker is a challenge. The point is not whether you can destroy it, but whether you can resist the impulse to do so." Cal's attention returned to the creature below. The Night Walker had stopped and was now staring directly at him, its glowing eyes unsettling in their refusal to blink. Cal felt his pulse quicken, his teeth aching for flesh. "Isn't this the essence of everything you've taught me?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Cyra smiled. "Precisely. Control. You will learn to acknowledge the hunger but refuse to surrender to it. Now focus." Cal inhaled deeply, trying to calm the maelstrom of emotions within. The Night Walker's gaze was like a magnet, drawing out a primal, deep feeling in his chest. His body yearned to pounce, to strike with bestial force. His fangs throbbed with the desire to pierce skin. It was almost overwhelming, but he resisted, focusing on Cyra's words, on her grounding presence beside him. Slowly, he allowed the hunger to swell but refused to let it overcome him. He kept his thoughts lucid, his body still. The Night Walker moved again, closer now, its head tilted as if examining him. It moved with the fluidity of smoke, shifting, yet utterly silent. Cal felt his muscles spasm, wanting to leap into action, but he held himself motionless, breathing steadily. "That's the way," Cyra murmured, her tone almost approving. "You are learning." Cal did not reply, his entire focus on the creature. He could sense it now, the Night Walker was aware of him. It was testing him just as Cyra was. This was a challenge, and Cal was determined not to fail. Without warning, the Night Walker lunged, its movements swift, almost too fast to follow. Cal's body reacted by instinct, but his reaction was not violent. He sidestepped, utilizing the agility Cyra had taught him, and seized the Night Walker by the arm, halting its momentum with a powerful grip. For a moment all was still. The creature struggled, but Cal's grip was absolute. Cyra stepped nearer, her eyes glinting with a mix of pride and amusement. Well executed. You did not yield. Cal exhaled sharply, working to stabilize his racing heart. His hand was locked around the Nightwalker's arm, and he could feel it squirming, but the hunger had not consumed him. Not yet. Now maintain your hold, Cyra instructed. Do not kill it. Do not harm it. Just hold it. Cal stared down at the creature, its glowing eyes still fixed on him. He felt a strange surge of power in his grip. For the first time he truly grasped what Cyra meant by control. He wasn't just restraining the Nightwalker, he was restraining himself. The hunger swirled again, an undercurrent beneath his skin. But this time it wasn't the urge to kill. It was a darker feeling. He wanted to devour the creature, to consume its essence. Instead, he squeezed his eyes shut and forcibly suppressed the thought. Enough, Cyra said after a moment. Release it. Cal let go of the Nightwalker, stepping back. The creature seemed to dissolve back into the darkness, retreating into the city's deeper shadows. You succeeded, Cyra said, her voice soft, almost tender. The test was never about the creature. It was always about you. Cal nodded slowly, his chest still heaving from the effort. He wasn't sure how to feel about this, about his transformation or about himself. I don't know if I can keep doing this, he admitted quietly. I don't know if I want to be this thing. Cyra studied him for a moment, her gaze intense. Then she spoke, her voice quieter than usual. You do not have to want to be this, Cal, but you are this now. And if survival is your goal, you will have to learn to coexist with it. Embrace it. The word felt heavier than it should. Embrace it. Cal wanted to protest, to argue, but there was nothing left to say. The hunger was now inextricably linked to him, and the path back was sealed. Cyra turned away, her voice drifting over her shoulder as she departed. I will be observing, Cal. The true challenge is just beginning. Cal watched her leave, a strange emptiness settling in his chest. He didn't know what lay ahead, but whatever it was, he knew it would test him in ways he couldn't yet imagine. The worst part was his uncertainty about being ready. The first genuine trial arrived 2 weeks later. Cal had spent the intervening time under Cyra's guidance, constantly pushing the limits of his new abilities and cravings. Each night she forced him to confront the hunger. Sometimes it involved simply holding back when a victim was presented, fighting the urge to feed. Other times it was far more complex. Hunting, tracking, and surprisingly, evading other creatures like him, vampires far less merciful than Cyra. But tonight was different. Tonight, Cyra made it clear they were testing something far more crucial and dangerous. There is a vessel, she said, looking at him with a serious expression. A transport ship inbound from the eastern colonies. It is scheduled to land on the outskirts of Eldrith within a few hours. The passengers aboard are extremely valuable. Cal raised an eyebrow. He recognized the type of ships, carrying traders, diplomats, or the occasional scientist. Most were inconsequential to him, but Cyra's tone indicated that this was no ordinary flight. What is the significance of this ship? He asked, already feeling a rising anticipation. Cyra's gaze hardened. It is transporting something exceptionally important, something that could shift the balance of power on this world. You must approach the ship without being detected. And when the moment is right, you will do what you now do best. Feed. Cal felt a chill travel down his spine. Feed on whom? The passengers, she replied bluntly. You are to leave absolutely no trace. Ensure no one escapes alive. This was the first time Cyra had explicitly tasked him with killing for the sake of their objective. Until now they had been hunting creatures, running control exercises. This was fundamentally different. This was a human vessel with human occupants. They were not the indistinct monsters he had grown used to consuming. Cal turned away, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon where the first signs of the transport ship could be seen, tiny specks of light. And what happens if I fail? Cyra stepped closer, her voice unusually soft. If you fail, you will bear the consequences. I am not here to protect you, Cal. I am here to ensure you are prepared for what is coming. Cal swallowed hard. What was coming? The answer was as elusive as it was terrifying. But this mission, this was the real test. He felt it in his bones. What exactly are we dealing with here? He asked, glancing back at her. She smiled faintly. You will discover that soon enough. The next few hours were saturated with tension as Cyra and Cal stealthily moved through Eldrith's darkened streets, navigating narrow alleys and concealed paths leading to the outskirts. The city's familiar sounds, footsteps, distant machinery, seemed muffled as if the world was holding its breath. Cal's instincts were hyper-alert, every subtle movement and whisper of the wind registering sharply. The hunger clawed at him, but tonight there was an added factor, something else lurking just beyond the edge of his perception. When they reached the landing site, Cal could see the ship clearly. It was an impressive structure, sleek, metallic, with faint, glowing runes etched into its surface. It was a cargo vessel, yet something about it felt distinctly unusual. He could sense it in the air, a thick tension hanging like the stillness before a thunderstorm. Cyra crouched beside him, her voice barely a whisper. "We will wait for them to disembark. Once they are on the ground, we strike." Cal nodded, already mapping out attack scenarios. He had been trained for precision strikes, choosing his moments carefully. But tonight would be different. The passengers were human, yes, but there was a hidden element, and he intensely disliked the feeling it gave him. This was not just about feeding, it was about something far greater. Minutes stretched into hours. The ship's engines hummed as it settled onto the ground, and Cal felt the faint tremor beneath his feet. As the ship's ramp lowered, a small group of figures emerged, shrouded in darkness by hooded cloaks, moving swiftly toward the landing platform. Their footsteps made no discernible sound as they advanced. Cal could faintly discern their voices, though their words were indistinct, muffled by the wind. "Those are the targets," Cyra murmured. "The ones you must neutralize." Cal's grip tightened around the handle of his blade, his senses on maximum alert. He could feel the strong pulse of the human figures, their blood rushing, swift and warm. They were so close now, he could almost taste the sweet, heavy aroma of their lifeblood in the air, a scent that made his mouth involuntarily moisten. He fought the powerful urge to advance. They were still moving, still utterly unaware of their peril. He could now hear faint, distinct chatter, and the sight of the passengers, humans just like he once was, felt suddenly, profoundly wrong. They were oblivious to the fate awaiting them, unaware of the predatory gaze that had been fixed on them for hours. "You must execute the attack swiftly," Cyra whispered urgently. "Strike hard before any of them can escape." Cal gave no verbal response. He didn't trust his voice. The hunger was surging again, faster this time. His fangs itched. His entire body ached with the desperate need for blood. He could visualize it, smell it, almost feel it inside him. Yet, a small voice of conscience whispered in the back of his mind, "What if these people do not deserve this?" Cyra's gaze locked onto his, penetrating and absolute. "You are superior to this, Cal. Do not hesitate." With a deep breath, Cal stepped out of the shadows, moving with the silent agility of a predator. His steps were light, deliberate, and he moved swiftly toward the group. His hands remained steady despite the frantic chaos in his thoughts. The human heartbeats were louder now, closer, each thrum of life acting as a powerful drumbeat calling out to him. He reached the first passenger, a man in dark, worn clothing. He grabbed the man by the shoulder, yanking him backward with a seamless motion. The man's eyes widened in terror, but it was too late. Cal's fangs sank into his neck in a blur. The taste was immediately overwhelming, rich, metallic, and warm. But before Cal could withdraw, something unexpected occurred. The man's blood felt wrong. It was too thick, too heavy, as if it were actively fighting against him. Cal pulled back, disoriented, and found himself staring into the eyes of the other passengers, who had instantly frozen, their gazes fixed on him. Cyra's voice, sharp and cold, sliced through the air. "They're not human, Cal. They never were." The hunger roared within him again, more fiercely than ever. But this time it had changed. It was no longer simple bloodlust. It was something darker, something far more menacing. And Cal realized with a chilling certainty that this was merely the prologue to a much larger conflict. The ship's engines had fallen silent long ago, and the outer hum of the universe felt like a distant memory. Cal stood at the center of the control room, staring down at the console, his hands resting on the cold surface. He felt the immense weight of everything pressing down, the hunger, the newly awakened guilt, and the unbridled power that surged through him like an unstoppable tide. His transformation was complete. But what did that truly signify? Where did he now belong in this sprawling, unknown galaxy? Behind him, Cyra leaned against the doorway, her arms crossed. Her presence was silent but irrefutable, like an inseparable shadow. "How do you feel?" she asked, her voice unexpectedly gentle, almost reflective. Cal didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gazed out the panoramic window, watching the stars streak by in endless lines of light. He had lived for so long under the delusion of certainty, fighting battles, carrying out orders, never questioning the rationale. Now, everything had fundamentally shifted. The life he had known was irrevocably lost. He was no longer a human warrior, no longer just Cal. He was something altogether different. I feel altered, he said slowly, his voice low. But it's beyond the hunger. It's more like I've become integrated into something enormous. As if I'm not just a man but a force. A force that cannot be halted. Cyra nodded from the doorway. That is the inherent cost of immortality. The hunger is only the initial phase. How you wield that power is what will ultimately define you. Cal contemplated this, his gaze returning to the dark expanse outside. I have taken lives, he said quietly, speaking more to himself. Not just monsters, not just things, people. Cyra moved closer, her presence almost ethereal. You killed to sustain yourself. But you did not kill purely for the act of killing. There is a crucial distinction, Cal. You have been granted a choice now. A chance to use that power for a greater purpose. Cal turned to face her, a new fire in his eyes, one he hadn't known he possessed. Then what do you expect me to do with this power? What exactly do you intend for me to become? Cyra's smile was slight but knowing. That is the central question, isn't it? What you choose to do with it is entirely up to you. I can guide your path, but I cannot make the choice for you. What I can tell you is this: you are no longer alone. He looked at her, the gravity of her words settling over him. In that moment he fully grasped the extent of his change. He had been a soldier, living and dying by the code of war. Now he was part of a new order, a new reality that transcended his former rules. But the ship, Cal began, returning his attention to the controls. What became of the passengers? The ones They are safe, Cyra interrupted, her tone now assured. You did not kill them. Not this time. And it was not for lack of capability, but because you made the conscious choice not to. A strange, unfamiliar sense of relief washed over Cal. He had braced himself for guilt, shame, and regret, but instead he found peace. The hunger still gnawed at him, but it was no longer all-consuming. He could control it. He could make his own decisions. So, this is the reality then? Cal asked, his voice now steady. The end of the line? Cyra's lips curved upward. Oh, this is not the end, Cal. It is simply the beginning. You have barely touched the surface of your potential. There is more out there, more power, more decisions, and more questions. But the critical difference now is that you are the master of your own destiny. The sound of a door opening interrupted their conversation, and a figure entered the room, a tall woman with silvery hair and an unmistakable aura of authority. She was one of the ship's passengers, though her features were decidedly non-human. Her eyes, glowing with an ethereal light, met Cal's with a knowing gaze. Cal, she said, her voice soft yet commanding. Cyra has shared a great deal about you. I see the potential within you. But there is a greater truth you must comprehend. Cal's eyes narrowed slightly, but he remained silent. His instincts were on high alert, but he trusted Cyra. If this woman was here, she was significant. She was part of the broader picture. What is it? He asked, his tone guarded but curious. The woman stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. You may believe the power you have gained is yours to command. But there are others. Others who crave it, who would destroy worlds to possess it. The galaxy is rife with factions, each driven by their own agendas. You will be compelled to choose who you align with and who you stand against. A shiver ran down Cal's spine. He had suspected as much. Something as dangerous as his new self would not go unnoticed. He would be targeted, hunted, and perhaps controlled. You do not have to undertake this journey alone, the woman continued. We offer you a refuge. A place where you can learn to control not only your hunger but your immense power. A place where you can stand alongside others like you. Cal met her gaze. He could perceive the sincerity in her eyes, yet something else lay beneath it, something darker, more intricate. He felt the heavy weight of the decision pressing down on him. Cyra's voice broke the silence. I have trained you, Cal. I have guided you to this balance. But this is a new horizon. The choice belongs to you. For a long moment Cal did not speak. His mind raced. His heart pulsed with the remnants of the hunger, but this time, it was not an uncontrollable beast. It was merely another facet of himself, something he could now restrain. He reflected on the past weeks, his struggles, his growth, how he had learned self-mastery. He remembered the choice he had just made not to feed when he easily could have. I don't know if I will ever fully be human again, Cal said quietly. But I am not a monster either. The woman nodded as if she had anticipated this very answer. Then you are prepared. Prepared to face what comes next. Cal stood tall. The burden of his transformation was no longer a weight but a responsibility. His journey was far from over, In fact, it was just beginning. The stars outside seemed to shimmer a little brighter now. He wasn't alone. He had a place, a purpose. And for the first time since his rebirth, Kel felt the stirring of something else within him. Oh, the galaxy was waiting for him.